So, first off, the obvious talking point. Trump has signed his big, beautiful bill, a sweeping legislation covering policy and the fiscal budget. This, of course, was the bill of controversy that drove a wedge between Elon Musk and Donald J. Trump. Although they definitely totally made up for real and they weren't just saving face, Elon Musk is still basically threatening to make his own third party called the American Party to split the vote. Every time that somebody has attempted to make a third party to try and break the current duopoly in American politics, it has ended disastrously. There's the Ross Perot and somebody else in like the early 1900s. They got pissed off. They made their third party, and all it did was split the vote of one party to the detriment of both. Basically, is how this works in the United States. And I know that the United States gets a lot of shit for being a two-party system, and to be honest, I don't like it either. But the way that it works in practicality is that this is not really too different from the parliamentary system where you just have to form a government by making a majority, because the governments are basically just the same as the Democrats and the Republicans, but split up 8 different ways. So the primary system in the United States is not too different from the parliamentary system. The main difference is actually in the Democratic Party, ironically, because they have the superdelegates, which is basically just the party's ability to override the actual democratic process, which is a bit weird. Anyways, that's completely off topic. The big, beautiful bill was signed, and there is one particular thing that stands out to me in this big, beautiful bill, and it was that Ethan Oliver Ralph has once again taken home a massive W, and everyone else must admit he was right.
They count as tax-free. Everything you give me counts as tax-free. God damn it, did you know that? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Thank you, President Trump.
Ethan Ralph once declared on stream some time ago that tips were going to be tax-free, and lo and behold, President Donald J. Trump and the big beautiful bill have actually added tax deductions for tips and overtime to the tune of $25,000. And there is a limit, so it's $150,000 if you're an individual filer, or $300,000 gross income for a married filer. But you have a $25,000 deduction for tips, which arguably should cover streamers as well. An anime avatar tried to tell me that her CPA informed her that super chats do not count under the wording of this legislation. That's real interesting and all, and I'm sure that the CPA has a reason to believe that. However, I instinctively do not trust anime avatars, so therefore I'm filing all your super chats as tips, and they are fucking tax-free. That's right. And you know what? If the government has an issue with that, they can take it up with Grok. I asked Grok first, and Grok said it was totally legit. So you know what? I trust Grok more than I trust anime avatars, and we're going to write that fucker off. Okay. There will be a Bossman segment. Zizren, don't you worry, brother. Don't you worry. However, speak of the devil, he shall appear. People who's hurt worst by the big beautiful bill, they've been warning us about the economic doom that this bill could bring. As Elon Musk said, it adds $2 trillion to the deficit. Ay Dios mío, but it awards $150 billion to the best Jew who has ever fucking lived, Miller, the guy who's our deportation czar. And he's saying that we're gonna deport all the Mexicans, and we got the money to do it. So you know what? I don't give a fuck about no $2 trillion. I'd rather live in a bankrupt shithole. I lived in a bankrupt shithole. I lived in Ukraine. It was bankrupt, and it was kind of fucking shitty. I'm gonna be real with you. Everything was dilapidated, but you know what? It was white, and they swept it up. I went outside every morning. I went outside, and I saw the babushkas taking care of their little storefronts, sweeping up the leaves. Everything was spotless. Yeah, the concrete showed holes. There was like metal rebar sticking out in some places, but you know what? With the zero resources they had, they kept that shit spotless. I'd rather fucking live in a country like that than in the United States in the McMansion that's all shiny and new, but actually rotting and decayed and culturally vacuous. So, but the person who suffers the most are the gamblers. As Newsweek says, Trump's big, beautiful bill could kill professional gambling. It means what it has done is it has previously, under IRS rules, if you are a gambler and you go to a casino and you play poker and you wager over the lifetime of your betting $1 million and you take home $1 million and $50,000 with $50,000 winnings, what you would say is that I made $50,000. The big beautiful bill reduces gambling losses as a tax deduction from 100% to 90%, which means that if you wager $1 million and you get $1 million and $50,000, you actually have, as far as the IRS is concerned, won $150,000, which means you have to pay taxes on $150,000 as opposed to $50,000, which plainly makes more sense. But for whatever reason, they want to tax professional gamblers. Now, I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you are a gambling addict with a crippling gambling addiction, and you have actually wagered $3 billion. Somehow, you have wagered the GDP of small nations on stake.us alone, and you have won $0. Now, rationally, you would look at this situation as many rational people did, as opposed to the fucking ratatouille rats who really thought that the IRS was going to break down somebody's door over something like this, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Rationally, we think that this person owes $0 in taxes because they made $0. Unfortunately, it may be the case. Now, I don't know for sure. I'm not a CPA, but it may be the case where someone in that situation would have to declare $350 million as earned income because that's 10% of $3.4 billion, chat. In which case, you would owe tens of millions of dollars in taxes for personal gains on money that you never will have, ever. So this is what it sounds like to me. This is what this sounds like to me, because this is very weird as far as the policy change. And it could have rippling effects to beloved members of our ecosystem, chat, of our society. We will find out if the IRS attempts to collect $100 million of income tax from somebody who smokes crystal meth, chat. And maybe, I wonder if the IRS, dude, that's how you're going to launder money. They're going to make the IRS go after gamblers to try and collect $100 million off wagered gambling that they just don't fucking have. And then the IRS is going to be so busy going after crackheads in Virginia that actual businesses are just going to pretend that they're just gamblers to reduce their tax burden. They're going to launder the money.
Thank you for watching this clip. This is Perspicacity. Remember to like and subscribe.